I've got a little system that, like, every time I fucking do a podcast, I have to have a coffee next to me, and I've got like 2 bottles of water.
Always caffeinated. Always caffeinated.
Always caffeinated, mate. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But I don't know why. Like, I must go through in the space of like, even if it's like a 20, 30-minute sort of session, like I'll go through like 2.5 liters plus a coffee.
Mate, your poor bladder.
Yeah. Like, and then if we stretch to like a 3 hour, I'm like, I need to recycle that bottle, pop it underneath the
table. you just see you fly on zip. Don't mind me.
Yeah, just keep talking, lad. Keep talking.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck me. Yeah, totally. All right. For people that obviously don't know who you are, people who do know you're an absolute fucking legend, and you literally are one of the kindest and hardworking people I've ever met, for sure. And I've met some pretty rad people in my time. You know what I mean? So for people that don't know who the fuck you are, explain. Who are you, mate?
So I'm Pete. Obviously, kind of good friend of Warby's. Obviously, I've known him kind of through high school. I'm a former disability swimmer. I spent 2 years in the kind of University of Stirling kind of high performance swim program in their second year squad. Finished that in 2017. Kind of then spent 2 years kind of trying to kind of salvage my degree. Graduated last year, and then kind of spent a year kind of just kind of, again, I think kind of just finding out what I want to do with myself, finding out what I want to do with kind of myself in general, and then kind of got a new job recently, and then I think that's me now, kind of back at uni, studying, doing an apprenticeship, and then obviously joined a CrossFit gym, which obviously has been kind of, I suppose, kind of a whole new revelation for me, and kind of, I suppose, what I enjoyed from swimming and kind of taking that and applying it to kind of multiple different kind of avenues of kind of fitness has been a great kind of, I feel like a great eye opener for me. And yeah,
like I remember the day you sent me a message saying, "Oh yeah, I stopped swimming."
Yeah,
and I genuinely thought the world had stopped still. I was like, "All right, this is it. This is the apocalypse. Like, shit's happening. You know, go buy a shotgun or something because they stock up on your tinned baked beans because something's going down." Because like the longest time I can remember, you're just pounding the meters in the pool.
Yeah,
absolutely going for it, and like
looking at that line, yeah.
But you're actually like destroying it too. Like you are successful.
I mean, again, I think it was. I think when I stopped swimming, it was a difficult time for me because I think kind of, especially at school, kind of in those latter years, especially, and then obviously the whole time at uni, everyone knew me as kind of Pete the swimmer, and then kind of overnight I went from Pete the swimmer just to Pete. And kind of, you kind of almost lose kind of like I really struggled kind of for a little while afterwards because you kind of lose that identity.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you kind of, what am I without that kind of element of my kind of without that element that kind of attached to me. And you know, it was. I think it was quite foolish in many ways because I kind of knew this kind of ultimatum was coming up in my future. I kept thinking, oh, like, don't think about it, just kind of get through the next. Like, just see where you are in the next kind of few months. Kind of see where you are. Like, don't kind of rush the decision. And then it kind of came to kind of almost kind of like a kind of a crossroads, and I had to decide kind of sort of then and there because, you know, with the degree that I was doing with teaching, I couldn't justify being part of the program. You know, kind of swimming 6 to 8 in the morning, then getting out the pool, going and teaching all day, then coming back and catching up on an S&C session, and then swimming again in the evening, and then trying to, you know, hit the macros. Hit all the kind of, you know, kind of post-pool work, all the pre-pool work, do lesson plans, it was going to be unfair to me, it was going to be unfair to the kind of the program, because I'm going to be taking up a space that someone else could have, and also not fair to anyone that I'm teaching, and also not fair to myself, because I'd be kind of almost going to burn the candle at two ends. So, but I knew that I had like this kind of placement that I was doing, and I knew it was coming up, I kept thinking, I'll just kind of put off the decision, and then kind of I just had to kind of go in one morning and go, do you know what, I've got to quit. And it was, I think, because I hadn't kind of spoken about it to my coach or to anyone else, because I've been trying to kind of deal with it myself.
Yeah,
he was dead shocked, and he was kind of taken off guard. And yeah, it was kind of just like a really awful moment, really. I think kind of one of those moments that kind of sort of stays with you, where you sort of like, what have I just done? Like I kind of walked out of his office, kind of walked out the pool. I remember walking out and everyone kind of being sat there and they were like, Pete, like, why don't you change me? Like, the session's starting in 10 minutes. And I'm like, I've just quit. And everyone was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I've got to go. And I kind of remember walking out and sitting in my car and just being like, shit, I've just done that. You know, kind of one of those kind of defining moments where you're kind of taking one path rather than the other. So yeah.
Do you regret it now?
I think it's going to be cheesy, but I think you think everything's sort of like, if you'd stayed on that path, you wouldn't be where you were now. And because I'm happy where I'm happy with where I am now. I think I don't regret it, but definitely there are certain, like, it's one of those things, you know, with hindsight and with looking back, you think, oh, you know, what could, you know, it leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What could I have done? Where could I have been? You know, because, you know, you could say next week that I could have, you know, swum a massive lifetime PB and gone, oh, well, now I've qualified for this and now, but you never know. So it's one of those kind of things that I regret that I didn't kind of see it all the way through, but I don't regret quitting when I did because I've ended up being happy where I'm at now. So it's kind of one of those kind of yes and no questions. I've sort of haven't really answered it, but
well, it's like, was it a gradual thing, or was it, you know, like you said, you just woke up one morning and just like, no, I actually have to just stop doing this?
Yeah. So when I started Sterling, I was definitely kind of one of the, like, I like the people that were there were, you know, I was swimming with kind of European junior swimmers, you know, world youth Olympic swimmers, like really kind of top level athletes. I remember thinking like, I am out, pardon swim pump, but I'm out of my depth here. Like these are big guys and big girls, like they're, you know, kind of, you know, really kind of elite athletes. And I remember kind of almost kind of just kind of every kind of session just turn up and kind of sort of being in awe of them. I mean, like, wow, I'm privileged, you know, seeing these guys. But over time, and also kind of spending time with them, you can sort of see them. Some of them also, some of them kind of falling out of love with the sport, and kind of like for them, their decision was kind of sort of made clear. Like they were like, no, I've kind of got to the point now where I'm not enjoying spending 24 hours a week, you know, in the, you know, doing pool, gym, you know, pre and post work and stuff like that. And for them, that's like they kind of made that decision. With mine, it was less of a decision that I wanted to finish, more of a decision I kind of had to, because obviously I had the teaching stuff coming up and I couldn't do both. So it's one of the things where, do I choose to change my degree and stop doing teaching, which I hadn't done that much teaching at that point. So I didn't know whether or not I'd pursue teaching long term, or do I stop swimming? And again, the whole thing with swimming, and I think hopefully something that we can talk about later, is that even if you're an elite swimmer, or I mean an elite swimmer, but even less so than an elite, you know, para swimmer, you're not gonna make anything like it. It's not a lifetime career. Like you couldn't earn enough as an elite para swimmer, or sorry, the very elite probably could, but you know, anything under that tier, you couldn't survive kind of comfortably. So it was kind of more of a choice about my future as well. Like it wasn't just kind of like then and there. It's kind of like looking forward. Where do I want to be? Where do I want to go?
It's a really difficult choice, isn't it, man? Because like
it was, yeah.
Like you said
really
about
abrupt.
your identity and that, because like you take that away from you, and you know you were known as Pete the swimmer, and you kind of look yourself in the mirror and you're just like, well, what am I anymore? I'm just Pete. Yeah. Which is actually a good place to be, because then you actually dissect who the fuck you are instead of like pairing it with an activity or something else that you're doing. But like that's a really difficult decision, and you kind of, it is 100% like a crossroads, and you're like, well, swimming's going this way and I'm just going to veer off to the other side.
Yeah. And it was so, I think again, for me, it was because I didn't want to deal with the situation in front of me. I kept putting it off because I knew it was going to be a horrendous choice. And it probably was a daft thing to do, but in my head, I'd sort of thought through every kind of possible kind of way to try and do both. And it wasn't compatible. Like, again, it wasn't compatible kind of to do that. Because, you know, being a full-time athlete and a full-time, you know, kind of teaching student, it isn't compatible. And I kept kind of trying to like weigh it up in my head, and I was like, there's no way you can do both and be kind of successful at both. And it isn't fair to anyone to kind of almost kind of half-ass both and try and do both, but not to the fullest, like, but not committing to, but not kind of doing your best in both. So it was definitely a difficult choice. And it was fairly abrupt. But you know, those kind of 18 months, 2 years that I was there, they were kind of, you know, incredible, and it was, you know, such a privilege to, you know, be there, you know, with kind of, you know, world-class athletes, incredible athletes, and, you know, kind of experience that kind of, that level of training and that kind of level of performance, and kind of something that I'd never experienced prior to going to Stirling. So I was obviously, I think it was, you know, a great experience, and again, it just, you know, helps kind of just, you know, develop you kind of your resilience, your timekeeping. I suppose you kind of appreciation for kind of elite sport, because you know how much goes into it. And again, especially with swimming, we had the British psychologist come for British swimming come up to Stirling to chat with the guys before Rio. So to chat with Craig, Ross, Robbie, and Duncan. But also he kind of gave like a seminar to all of us in the kind of program. He said, "I've been the psychologist for, you know, cycling, British basketball, British cycling, but in swimming, I can't understand it, because you spend hours and hours and hours a week training, you know, kind of 4 years for an Olympic cycle. And then in reality, it comes down to maybe 2 or 3 races a year, which last 30 seconds. So your preparation time is 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time you spend in the pool preparing for this 30-second window, or, you know, in, you know, a body sport, much than 20-second window. But like if you're a footballer, you spend maybe, you know, 20 hours a week training, but then you have a 90-minute match every week. So the kind of the opportunity to kind of perform and the opportunity to kind of see the results in such a fine window in swimming. And I can remember kind of sitting there kind of like, I never thought of it like that. And I was like, wow, he's right. You know, you spend, you know, 24 hours a week times, you know, maybe 45 training to only have kind of maybe 2 or 3 30-second windows of actual kind of race time, you know, kind of time where you are kind of trying to put down all your work, like all your kind of hours of training, all your hours of kind of suffering to kind of show how you've improved. It's a 30-second window twice a year, and you're like, wow, you know, never realized that.
I think this is where like swimming actually benefits and goes hand in hand with CrossFit, because they're both like the pursuit of excellence, right? Excellence is this like euphoric state that you will never reach. It's like perfection. Like you will never fucking reach it. Like we're organic. We are going to die. We decay. So we will never be perfect. And like swimming is exactly that. Like you just pound and pound and pound and pound to shave whatever you can here and there. And you get this little window, like you said, to sort of prove what you've done in the past 4 years. And if you don't make it, well, we'll see you again in 4 years. And obviously CrossFit's not as extreme as that. However, there's so many different avenues. There's so many different things going on that you can shave time in transition. You can get better at the different modals. You can get better at, you know, like the efficiency of moving a barbell, or the efficiency of like turning around and kicking up straight into a handstand and that. So like the performance of CrossFit, taking CrossFit and CrossFit as a sport as two different things. So we're talking about the sport sort of comparison here. Like I think that's where they go hand in hand, and because swimmers they have something else between their ears, man. Like being able to just keep themselves that dedicated for that long at that early age, because it's fucking early specialization, isn't it, man?
Oh, I mean, again, like again, all the athletes I was sort of with at Stirling, they were all sort of, you know, kind of getting in, like kind of at the elite level already, kind of at, you know, 8, 9, 10, get kind of those ages going up. I was really late to the game, but I think that's kind of that came with kind of being involved kind of in the disability side of the sport rather than kind of the able body side of the sport. So because there was less, I suppose, kind of less uptake and less retention of disability swimmers, I was able to kind of start later and kind of still have the opportunity to make an impact and kind of get to where I was. So because again, there's, I suppose, less uptake, less retention, so therefore there's less overall athletes to kind of make your way through. Whereas obviously in able body, you've got, you know, I'd probably say tens of thousands of people to, you know, to be in the top 1%, you've got to be, you know, kind of grafting for days, you know, for years and years, and kind of prove your kind of standards. But I suppose as I think again, another link between CrossFit and swimming is that it is black and white. Like it isn't like in like football or rugby where you can, you know, you can get beaten, you know, you can get beaten, but you like your team can get beaten, but you can play a great game. In swimming, it's black and it's white. It's, you know, if did you get the time, yes or no. It doesn't matter whether you're a point one off or like at the end of the day, like you and same across, you get a time. So it doesn't matter whether, that was your best swim. Like, if you hit the cutoff time for a certain event, you don't get selected. You don't get picked. It's brutal, but also it makes it really kind of easy to see where whether you've progressed or not. Like, it is just black and white. That being said, you can still progress your form, your technique, your kind of your race, and not improve. But it is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you've got the best technique in the world or the worst technique in the world. If you swim faster, it's whoever swims a faster time, so if it gets from A to B the fastest, following certain rules. But again, that's the same CrossFit. You have certain movement standards that you have to adhere to. In swimming, we have certain stroke rules that we have to adhere to. So I think that's the beauty of the sport. And again, I suppose, and yes, it's the same again with CrossFit, obviously. I think one thing I love about swimming and one thing I enjoy about CrossFit is that it's all you. So if you do really well, it's because you've done really well. And the same with swimming. If you swim a PB, it's your PB. It's even no one else. You've put the work in, you've got the reward. But that also being said is that you do have the opportunities, obviously, in CrossFit and in swimming to obviously be part of, teams and do relays. And that's a whole different sort of kind of, I suppose, kind of a different feeling, because you're working for someone else there. I think for some people that really helps them. But I enjoy swimming relays, but I definitely enjoyed the kind of knowing that the work I was putting in, I was going to see the benefit, rather than in sport like rugby, you can put all the effort in the world, but if your teammates don't do it as well, there's no point, because you've got to be kind of a whole entity. And if you win, you win and you share in that success. But if you win in swimming, it's all you, and you get all the success, which I think is a huge motivator. And yeah, I think that is, again, it's one of the things I really loved about swimming, and which transfers over to CrossFit. But again, I think one thing I was told by someone, I really can't who for the life of me, but they sort of, actually, I think it was Mr. Do you remember Mr. Thomas?
Yeah.
PE teacher. He said to me, like, I don't understand. Like, it was in an ATP class. He sort of said to me, he said, I can understand, hockey players and football players, and but I can't stand swimmers, just spending 2 hours in the morning staring at a black line. I think you've got to be a little bit soft in the head. And I sort of thought, he's right there. You have got to be a little bit to do something like swimming, and to stare at a black line for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours again in the evening. You have got to be a little bit almost kind of just like, yeah, I'm just gonna take this. I'm gonna experience this pain. I'm gonna, kind of just get my head down and work through. And yeah, I think it's a great way to kind of build up kind of, I suppose, almost resilience, because some sets that that I've done, and I'm sure you've done in CrossFit as well. This almost kind of the only point where they kind of have you questioning yourself as a human. You kind of sort of like, how much do I want to push myself? How much do I want to suffer? And how much am I going to kind of see the benefit of this after the workout?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And like the mental resilience that's created and forged through staring at that black line, or through the barbell, or just doing a couple of fucking burpees and pushing yourself to that line and then just fucking riding it out. Like in all competitive sport, whether you're competing against the clock and yourself, or whether you're competing against the person next to you, like that sort of level of resilience created during physical activity is the reason why I believe everyone should do something. Everyone should do a sport. Everyone should fucking work out. Everyone should just like move around, because like the benefits you get psychologically, that then translates over to everyday life, like being able to deal with stress, being able to work within a team, being able to like dissect the physical sort of things that's going on in your body, and being able to read it and understand what's going on, so then you can actually like change the way you react to other people, so you don't come across arrogant or rude or whatever. Be like, it shows, I think it's Marcus Aurelius, or one of those ancient Greek Stoics, that was like, a man should see, obviously man is in mankind, so man and woman should see their full physical potential before they die. Paraphrasing, of course, I can't really remember, but it was something like that. And it's like, it's true, because it's not all for the egotistical. Like, for example, we use the sport of bodybuilding, right? So you use bodybuilding. Someone outside of the sport will look into that and be like, egotistical, narcissistic, just cares about looks, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, granted, because it's a subjective sport, and like, whether you class it as a sport or not, it doesn't really matter. It's a subjective sport. It's all about like insertions and symmetry and size and all that shit. Yeah, great. But like the training they go through creates so much discipline and resilience up here. And it's the same with the pool. And it's the same with like just going and playing recreational squash. You know what I mean? Or batters. Like you develop so much between your two ears that ends up translating to your relationships, your job.
Yeah,
you know, and everyone should do it, man.
And I think one thing that especially again is like I think everyone who's done sport, and I think obviously both you and I included, excuse me, will agree is that the people that you meet and the people you socialize with, that's such a huge impact of sport and of sport in general, but also of, like, I think that can't be underestimated with every sport, because I think going to places like swimming or football or CrossFit or bodybuilding, you meet people that if you're there because you enjoy it, you meet people who are similarly minded. And I think that's such a great way to kind of meet people who are kind of, sort of going to be on your wavelength, because you could walk into like a coffee shop and you might, you'd be met with people who you probably might not get along with as well, because you don't have the same sort of interests or same sort of things that you find interesting. Whereas if you go to somewhere like, like if you enjoy CrossFit or you enjoy football or you enjoy rugby, or even if you enjoy, like as you say, that kind of social badminton or something like that, you're going to meet people who are on a similar wavelength, and that's immediately going to help you kind of forge friendships. And then obviously those friendships are going to help you so much with your kind of mental health and your kind of ability to kind of like have that place as kind of an environment where you feel safe and comfortable and supported. And that's can't be kind of undervalued, really.
Yeah, and even if you don't enjoy it initially and you just kind of, it's forced to start off with, you're still surrounding yourself with like-minded people and they might be doing the same thing. And then, it's kind of like a pull, and then everyone gets to do things that, actually creates construction rather than destruction. And I remember the best quote I've ever had from a member is, I pay for this so I don't have to pay for therapy.
It's so true. Like one of the guys I go to the gym with, he sort of said, like, I come here and he's a really, really successful chap. And he works for a big charity, but obviously I imagine it must be stressful. I think he's got like hundreds of people who kind of work underneath him, and it must be really difficult for him. But when he goes to the gym, he said that he goes there and he can just switch off, and having that space where you can turn your phone off, you can switch off from the outside world. In that hour, you're just in that box with those people, pushing yourself to your limits. That is really crucial for obviously physical health. Obviously, you're going to be kind of helping improve your heart, improve your heart, your respiratory system, and so on and so forth. Also, helping improve your mental state, helping yourself kind of process the day and switch off, or if it's in the morning, set yourself up for the day. And that is, again, like obviously everyone talks about the physical benefits, but I think a good thing kind of coming out of this year and kind of the recent years is that the mental health is kind of being more and more kind of pushed to the forefront, and that's so critically important for so many people.
Even if it's like you don't end up going to the gym and all you do is get up a little bit earlier and you go for a walk. Like I've legitimately had people where I'm like, right, I'm not going to write your program. I'm not going to coach you. I'm not going to do anything. All I want you to do is I want you to wake up half an hour earlier and I want you to go for a walk. I don't care how far it is. I just want you to walk around. You can walk to the end of your frigging street, turn around and come back, and it could take you about 2 minutes. I don't care. Go for a walk. I'm like, what do you mean? That's absolutely ridiculous. I'm like, no, I don't want any paying. This is advice. This is me to you. Go for a fucking walk in the morning. Come back, tell me how you're feeling. And like, mate, it changes their day.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're bang on, especially in the morning, having that little almost routine and like having that thing that'll set you up for the day is really, really important. Like, and everyone's totally different. Some people it is like just getting up and having a coffee. Some people it's getting up and just, I'd say, kind of having a bit of fresh air. Some people it's getting up and doing a workout. And like I know so many people. Like I think I was quite surprised when because obviously as a swimmer, I think you have to sort of be a morning person.
Yeah.
I was quite surprised when I joined the gym. And I was like, oh yeah, like I'll go at the 6 a.m. because they'll be dead quiet and I can do my own thing, kind of sort of. I looked on we use like one of these kind of these apps to kind of sort of book on. I looked on this app and I was like, why is it all booked up at 6 a.m.? Like, who are these people? Like, I was so shocked. I was like, I thought that was going to be my time to go and like have like no one there and kind of be like, oh yeah, I'm a swimmer, I'm used to this. But it was already even throughout both lockdowns, it's been booked up every time. I'm almost a bit like, yes, kind of bravo, kind of seeing people kind of going out there 6 a.m. and crushing it. It's awesome.
Mate, the fucking morning crew and CrossFit boxes are absolute mad bastards. They are incredible people, man. Like, they turn up still half asleep. You know what I mean? Don't have a clue where they are, but fuck me, like, they absolutely drive themselves into an early grave and then give you a high five and be like, right, I've got to go to work. Like, sorry, what?
Yeah, that's it. That is it. I think, again, like, but this again with CrossFit, with swimming, there's so much kind of solidarity among kind of people who are all going through it together. Like in swimming, like we'd all be there, kind of 5:30 in the morning. You'd be like, I say, especially like we used to on Tuesdays. We used to train 3 times on a Tuesday, 10 till 12 in the morning, 3 till 4 in the like lifting in the afternoon, 8 till 10 p.m. swim, and we'd be back in Wednesday morning for 6 till 8. So you'd be kind of finishing 8 till 10, kind of getting home for probably about 11, eating, and then probably getting bed at 12 and then waking back up for kind of like quarter past 5 and getting back to pool for 5. And you'd literally I'd be absolutely dying. But knowing that fact that it's not just you, it's, kind of 15 other people doing it with you. And you kind of in Scotland, so it's always cold, but especially like in January when it's like, kind of minus, 4 or 5 out and you're there still, stood on deck in speedos, like I really don't want to get in this pool and have it, but that it's 15 other people who are doing it with you. It's sort of almost kind of like gives you that kind of that little extra push that you need, sort of thing, to be, I'm going to do it, I'm going to make this count. And again, it's kind of like the classic kind of Matt Fraser, I'm going to do now, like do what I do. I'm going to work now to do things that other people can't do. So that when it comes to, again, time to kind of prove your kind of at the games or at the games or if it's swimming, at the big meet, knowing that you've put in every kind of possible thing that you can do. Because I think that was one big thing when I was swimming, is that when I got on the blocks, I'd be like, have I done everything that I can here to put down this best time, to do the best? And if you kind of stood there like, yeah, I have, and almost I wasn't that worried about. I really wasn't worried when I was racing, especially. I used to get kind of fairly anxious when I was kind of racing kind of Knutsford and kind of in the northwest. But then when I went to Stirling, it kind of changed. It really changed my mentality, because when I got onto those blocks, it wasn't like, oh, what am I doing? I knew exactly what counts I was going on, when I was breathing, where I was breathing, kind of what speeds to go. It was almost kind of prescribed, and you just kind of executing rather than kind of racing. You just execute what you've done in training. So it was almost kind of like, it was actually kind of fairly relaxed. Like I wasn't actually kind of that stressed racing. And I think that's almost kind of like, if you can be that way and just know, be kind of unflappable, and just kind of like know that you're going to go out and do and kind of perform, it's the kind of best way to be, because you're just kind of going to do, just to do what you train for, which is, I think, kind of the best way. Because obviously, with kind of pressure and nerves and anxiety, that's not going to be your optimal state of kind of performance. So I think, kind of being there and doing what, and I think again, a massive thing at CrossFit is do it, kind of coming in each day and it's completely different to what you were doing the day before. And I think that's kind of one thing maybe with swimming that I didn't get so much, because you come in and you day in, day out, kind of working on one particular thing or kind of one particular change, and it's all really kind of finally focused on this one event, this kind of 50-meter freestyle, this 200 medley. It's really focused. Whereas CrossFit is, one day you're doing, burpee box overs, the next day you're doing snatches. It's having that kind of that ability to kind of adapt and change and be kind of dynamic.
Something I find absolutely fascinating is the mental resilience. However, like, you get those athletes that they have to know exactly what they're doing so they can mentally rehearse and prepare it, and then they can go forward. And I'm like, yeah, that is a level of mental resilience. That is a level of determination. That is a level of strength, like a mental toughness. However, how are you like with the unknown? And I do believe that, like, not knowing what you're about to do, but knowing in yourself that whatever the fuck happens, you're going to be okay. You're going to survive. And all the stuff you've put in previously in every sort of aspect, whether this is CrossFit or not, it doesn't really matter. Every other aspect is going to get you through it, and you're going to be fine. And like, I do believe that, like, everyday human beings need to experience something like that because you've experienced it in your fucking job. When you go to your job tomorrow, right? Do you know exactly what's going to happen minute by minute? No, you don't.
Yeah.
So like, why should we like give you the fucking thing a week before and be like, hey, this is exactly what you're going to do? Yeah, granted, for periodization, peaking for events, athletes, pushing. I completely understand that from a programmer's perspective, from a coaching perspective, and from an athlete perspective, and I agree with it. However, we're talking complete GPP, and like complete, just everyday athlete. I like to throw down and kick it, mate. You need that, like, you need that area of like psychologically being fucked.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, all right, Pete, you're gonna do this, and then you fucking finish, and I'm like, oh, you're not gonna do that anymore. Like, what do you mean I'm not going to do it? I'm like, yeah, I lied to you. You're now going to go do this.
Yeah. And I think you're bang on as well. I think one big thing, especially you as a coach can appreciate, is you've got to, as an athlete, just trust the process and trust that what you're doing. Like some sessions that I remember vividly, kind of doing 7-8K sessions, and like the main body of the session would be 5 1000s, and you'd look at it and go, what benefit does that have to me as a 50-meter freestyler? Like, this is going to be dull. It's going to be tedious. It's going to suck. It's 6 a.m. This is the last thing I've got out of bed to come and do this, and I can't see where it's going to be a benefit. But also, you've got to kind of think, well, hang on a minute. They've got my entire year in front of them, and they know exactly what they're doing. Step by step. They're the expert. I've got to trust in that process and let them kind of guide me through it, and it's all going to pay dividends one day. Like, no coach will ever just say, yeah, we're just doing this to hurt you. We're just going to put you through hell for no apparent reason. Everything's up bent. Like, as an athlete, and I'm sure you might agree, like, you think like, what are they doing to me? Like, this is diabolical. But it has a purpose. It has a reason.
Well, that's the thing. Even if it's just like, all right, I'm literally going to try and break you down as a human being, so you cry on the floor, and you're like sadistic. But like, what's the benefit from this? Like, the benefit is the fucking mental toughness you're gonna get from it.
Precisely. It's not always the physical thing, and like sometimes it is like 100% mental. Like thinking, like some of I've done workouts, and especially in swimming, I've done workouts where I've been like, oh, I didn't think I could do that. I didn't know I could hold a 32 point for 1050s, but you told me to do it. I've gone and done it, and that's changed my entire, like, now moving forward, that's achievable, that's attainable. So now next time I'm going to try and try and do it slightly faster or slightly lower stroke rate. And I think sometimes it is just you've got to trust it, in that method, in that person, because obviously, and I think, as an athlete, again, you and I think we both experience, like, you work with coaches, and it'll be great to work with them, and you'll have certain things that really work together, but you've got to go through a few coaches just to find out who suits you best and who works well with you. Because obviously, the coach-athlete relationship, it needs to be, it's a two-way street. Yeah, you're working with them, but they're working with you, and they need to understand you. You both need to understand each other. You both need to know what the other one wants out of it. And obviously, as I'm sure you'd agree, communication is key, and also trust is key. Like, as an athlete, you should have that ability to question a coach, say, why are we doing it? The coach obviously should answer, but sometimes as an athlete, you've got to just be like, yeah, we're doing it. I don't know why, we're just going to do it.
I think a lot of it, the mindset is like, I speak to people all the time, right? And whether it's in a coaching setting, whether it's in an athlete setting, whether it's fucking physical setting or not, like, like, because like we said, I believe everything that you sort of you gain from the physical stuff is translated over into everyday life and into the mental stuff. Anyway, and like physical and mental well-being is not two separate things; they work in synergy. But like, the mindset that I approach to things, and I tell people to approach, is like, give yourself no fucking option. Like, give yourself no option. Like, how many times have you been doing a set, right? For example, the 1050s. You're like, Pete, I want you to hold a 32. You're like, I can't do that. Like, there's fucking no way I'll be able to do it. And your coach turns around and goes, if you fail one, you start again. And it's like, what do you mean? Yeah. Like, I physically will not be able to do that. I was like, I don't give a fuck. You can be here all night. and I will arrive back at 4 a.m. because I've got the fucking morning. I don't care. If you don't finish all 10 of them at 32, like you're going to be here all night. And how many times do you end up finishing it?
Exactly.
Like, not because the coach have told you, because you've given yourself no option to fail.
Yeah. And they know you as well. I think they wouldn't say to you unless they knew you were capable. Like,
yeah, for sure.
They wouldn't take it for failure. I think again, one great thing that again was a benefit of being at Stirling is that back in the back when I was at Knutsford, or back when I was in the Northwest, like you'd be swinging. I'm giving it my all here. Like, I'm doing as hard as I can. At Stirling, we'd access to lactate testing, so they'd do it and be like, your lactate's only 8. You're not trying hard enough. And it's when you're told that, and you're like, but scientifically, they're saying like, there's no, again, it's a quantitative figure. It's a number, and it can't lie. So that's saying you're not trying hard enough. So then in your mind, you're thinking, well, I've got more to give them, and that's a huge kind of switch and a huge shift. But obviously, not everyone has access to that. But that was a huge thing for me as well, just kind of being able to kind of be like, oh, I can try harder, but only because that, like, if he'd said to me just black and white, said to me, Pete, you got to try harder, I'd be like, Brad, I'm giving it all I can. This is my max effort. But he's, prick my finger and gone, it's 8. You can try harder. You're like, oh, yeah, you're right, I can. Like, I think that's, almost kind of making it like kind of, I suppose kind of the other way to do it was also kind of using like RPE and kind of saying like, if this is an 8 out of 10 for you, we need to be a 9. We need to be, or vice versa. So like in some sets, and I was terrible for this when I was swimming. We want this to be a chilled, 5 out of 10. I'd be like, yeah, that's not happening, sort of thing. Like, I'm always going to be trying, and especially kind of being a disabled athlete, because I was the only para athlete in that program when I was there. I think I did have a chip on my shoulder. Like I wanted to, to be there with the kind of, train with the big, with the big dogs, try and keep pace. And it took so long for me to change my kind of mental psyche and to stop trying to prove myself to them, because I didn't need to prove myself to them. Like they knew, that I deserved to be there. But it kind of in my head, I was like, no, you've got to kind of try. You've got to kind of keep up with them. You've got to try and match them. And if I could match them, I wouldn't be a disability swimmer. Like so, or it's there's a reason why I wasn't kind of hitting the times that they were hitting. So it took me a long time, a lot of kind of conversations with Brad, conversations with my teammates to be like, no, I can stop, kind of killing myself every session, because that just doesn't lead to that isn't constructive, because there's no time for you to recover. And then when it comes to sessions where they want you to try hard, you're then already too knackered from the session that you took. That was so easy that you did too hard. So I think it was a really steep learning curve for me and for my coach, because obviously he coached Paris swimmers in the past, but not at the kind of level that I was at, sort of thing. So it was really, he did a fantastic job. The program as a whole did a fantastic job with me. And obviously the kind of the improvements that I made in the program were, kind of showed that.
It does pose that's a really, really important point that you made of like easing off, taking your foot off the gas. Like, we talk about, look, you need to be able to push yourself further. Like, don't be a fucking bitch, defeat your inner bitch, do your fucking thing, push a bit harder, mental toughness. But there's also times where you do develop mental toughness by taking your foot off the bloody gas. Like, you cannot just go 100 miles an hour all the time, because you'll end up just digging yourself an early grave, and that's not the point of what we're doing, whether it's peak performance or not.
That's why so many injuries come up, because you're not giving your body that chance to recover and that chance to heal. And then again, because obviously again, we in the program we worked on a 3-week cycle, so it was 2 weeks on, 1 week kind of recovery and regen. And I was, in that first season, I was so bad for just kind of swim through every single week. And then I'm suddenly thinking, oh, why am I picking up shoulder injuries? It's because you're not giving your body that opportunity to recover and to to heal. And you can't expect your body to just constantly go at 100. And it's the same in in workouts. If you got a 12-minute workout, you can't. And this is the whole point with scaling, which again is something that I'm, I think every fella is battling with. Because you go into some classes, or actually everyone, guys and girls, you go into some classes, and especially if there's an elite athlete in there who can do RX and make it look and be comfortable with it, you kind of think, well, I want to do it as well, but that isn't the desired stimulus. If you go RX and can only hit 5 reps, and then you still left 8 more minutes just trying to squeeze out another rep, that isn't the stimulus that was designed for that workout. So
This is why I absolutely love CrossFit, and it's really fascinating, especially with like the distribution of people within a class. Because like, you know, you could get someone and, you know, when you learn individuals rather than you just see as a member or an athlete or whatever you call them, a client, but I really don't like that word. So I call everyone athletes. Whether, you know, you get to know that individual and you're just like, I know that that person is going through a ton of psychological stress right now. And like you be able to sort of delegate each of them an individual workout by saying, oh, Pete, like, I know you're pretty on form at the moment. So I know the weight is 60 kilos. But what I want you to do is I want you to go 70 kilos today. I really want you to push yourself with a little bit of a heavier weight. Don't worry about the rounds. And in fact, I don't even want you to fucking count.
Yeah.
And then you can go, oh, Sandra, like, or Alex, for example, like me, you're just like, I know you're a bit stressed at the moment, mate. What I want you to do, all I want you to do is move. So what do you mean?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want you to do anything unbroken. I want you to break and go from there. I think the best thing I've used for like recovery days, which is, you know, you've got to be careful about it because it's chewing gum, right? So you've got to chew chewing gum whilst you're working out, whether it's with a bar. It's usually with like just a bit of a like monostructural, like the Miko triangle with a assault bike row, or the ski, maybe a bit of running, maybe just a Concept 2 bike, you know, something pretty meaningless, just sort of working around. So if you're chewing chewing gum, yeah, exactly, just cardio. If you're chewing chewing gum, you can be anaerobic. You can't be like gasping for air because you're gonna end up swallowing that fucker and you're gonna end up choking. So like it forces you to slow down and chill out and breathe. And like sometimes, you know, that is how you take 2 steps forward, by not actually going into 6th gear. And I don't know, it's hard. Like if I spoke to like a complete everyday athlete or someone who's never done any sport before and wants to just get as good as they can, as quick as they can, it's really, really hard to get into their mind of just being like, hey, look, your body's going to send you a shitload of signals. Some of them I want you to ignore, and some of them I want you to take like gospel. And they're like, oh, how do I know? It's like, well, it's hard.
It's, you know, developing that filter is so crucial. And I think obviously, again, going back to my kind of obviously background of swimming, like you've got to know kind of what, as you say, kind of what things to take on board, and kind of, you know, kind of feeling that, you know, feeling the water for the catch, feeling kind of the speed that you're going at, feeling kind of what your turnover is, what rate you are, kind of feeling how kind of how much lactate's in there. And it's, but then you've got to be able to kind of filter out certain things like kind of people around you, noise. You kind of also got to kind of be like a kind of, what do you want? What's going to be beneficial to you, and what's actually just actually kind of detracting from your performance. It's kind of taking from here but trying to ignore as much from here. And that is so kind of, that's crucial in any sport. Like you can't be expected to kind of, you know, kind of be, and obviously some sports are, you know, are much more crucial for, again, like stuff like football, rugby, kind of those team sports. You need to be aware of what's around you. In swimming, unless you're kind of more of a distance-based swimmer, if you're a 50-meter freestyler, you've got to focus on what you're doing, what's happening with, you know, with you, rather than kind of what, you know, what so-and-so's doing in the next lane. You've got to kind of focus on your performance, because if you get distracted and look what he's doing, you're going to lose what you're doing. So as you say, kind of having that filter to kind of know what to take in, what to ignore, what to kind of listen to is really, really, you know, imperative.
For sure. And if you know, it's hard to be able to dissect what it actually means. And I just say, write it down. Just write it down, because it'll be clear then. All the evidence and all the pieces of information and everything you need to know will be on the piece of paper in front of you. All you got to do is put your, you know, Detective Clouseau hat on, and just sort of like match the dots. Yeah, man. Like being able to dissect those internal feelings, like, yeah, you know, you're going to do the wrong thing. You're going to do the wrong thing sometimes. You're going to fuck up, and, you know, you're going to get a niggle from it, or you might injure yourself from it. God forbid, you're going to like actually snap your shit up from it. Or you'll go to work the next day, you're like, I'm so fatigued. Like, I feel like if you slapped me, I would feel it 5 minutes later. And I'm like, well, your CNS is probably a little bit fried.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, obviously, I think that was kind of, again, like one great kind of good thing with my disability is that almost with when my CNS was absolutely fudged, it is shown in me physically. And I think obviously kind of, everyone people show it as well, but especially with me kind of with the cerebral palsy, like you can just look at me walking in and Bradley like, he's absolutely fucked. Like he's not doing this session.
Yeah.
Like I'd get out of the pool and he'd be like, how you doing? I'd be like, yeah, fine, totally cool. Kind of absolutely firing like a madman, like my head twitching, my hands spasming, and he'd be like, you're not okay.
Yeah.
And again, it was kind of that like kind of learn to work with each other. And I think again, kind of me not kind of constantly trying to prove, that I'm, I suppose kind of let your results kind of do, speak for you rather than kind of trying to prove day in day out that you deserve the place. So I think, again with disability sport, it's a whole kind of different kettle of fish to able-bodied sport, because you're not only competing with like in able-bodied sport, everyone's kind of on the same level, whereas in disability sport, especially if it's kind of multi-classification, you're competing against other people in different classifications. You've got to, it isn't who touches the wall first, it isn't who finishes first, it's who's closest to their own world record. And that, kind of flips it all on its head a little bit, because you can touch the wall first but not win the race, sort of thing. And that's kind of a bit of a thing to get used to. But I think, again, personally, it made the sport for me much more interesting, because it isn't, you're not looking at who's winning, you're looking at who's you're looking more at the times rather than who touches the wall first. And that was always, again, it was mega kind of like seeing kind of, and again, like obviously with disability sport, again, it's, I think with able-bodied sport as well, it's how people adapt certain movements and certain things to suit them and how they can best perform. Like I've seen, and also you see it with coaching, kind of how people's joints they kind of intersect depends on how they'll squat. Like how much rotation they'll have on their feet depends on how good their ankle mobility is. So that all kind of comes together, but especially with disability sport, because it's a kind of format where something is awry, something is maybe missing, that you then adapt to the entire movement to still fit in with those rules, but you can still do incredible things. And I think that's, I've seen some amazing kind of people, and again, as you say, it's that mentality. And I think also, who've kind of been like, no, I'm not going to let this kind of be that kind of end of my, I'm not going to let this kind of disability be kind of a limiting factor. I'm still going to do what I want to do. I might have to do it differently, but I'm still going to do, and be, a great athlete and do great things. I think that's such kind of it's so uplifting to see and so kind of inspirational.
I think no matter what level you are, if you participate in disability sport, you are one of the most mentally strong human beings on the fucking planet. Like by far, like being able to just take that knock and just be like, oh yeah, so this needs to change. You'd be like, all right, I'm still going to dominate. I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to like be fit and healthy. No matter where you are on that spectrum, I think it's absolutely incredible, mate.
I think one thing for me, obviously with disability sports, again, I came to the party really late with it. Like I never had any kind of interest in sport. Like I was kind of like the kind of, set 3 PE, like kind of little chubby kid, didn't really want to do sport. Obviously I had the disability, and even though my parents were ace with me, they were sort of like, just like, kind of throw him in and see what happens. And obviously having kind of a twin sister, an able-bodied older brother, they never treated me any differently. So I was never per se kind of like kind of wrapped in cotton wool. My parents were kind of more the kind of see what you can do and kind of like, we'll throw you on a trampoline and see, and we'll just see what happens, sort of thing. Which might not have been the safest, but they really kind of not treating me kind of as kind of fragile and as kind of different, from my siblings, really kind of helped in that sense. But I'd always kind of, I wasn't embarrassed about being. I'm really unfortunate with my disability. It's I've coped really well with it. I've had great doctors, great physios. I've been involved in trials and kind of more pioneering things, which have been really fortunate, like off the Botox trial and stuff like that. Really had a great impact on my kind of outcomes. But I never kind of openly would walk into especially in high school. It can be a brutal place where kind of differences are picked on. So I wouldn't walk into a classroom and say, I've got cerebral palsy, sort of thing. It wasn't something that I would openly kind of go about and say. But as I've gotten older, kind of, I suppose I've kind of owned it more. And also, again, I think when you become older as well, people become kind of more open to the idea.
Yeah.
Not open to the idea, but kind of more, not even understanding, because I think just people kind of, it becomes more of a discussion rather than like, if I told people back when I was 15 or 16, or I've got, they'd be like, all right, okay. And then they'd kind of almost kind of want to kind of divert the topic, and it wouldn't be something that was kind of openly discussed. Whereas now, I'll say, yeah, but I've got cerebral palsy, that, like, let's chat about it now. Like, like if you ask me a question, like, sort of thing, which I think is a much better way to be with disability, because so much of it is understanding. And again, with all disabilities and with all people, everyone's different, so everyone's going to have slightly different disabilities. It's going to affect them in a slightly different way. And it's about kind of how you adapt and how you approach challenges, I think, are the main things.
I think that relates to like the bigger picture of like hate and hate crime and all those other like different avenues you can go down of like, people's sexual orientation, people's race, although we are all still the human race. So I think that argument is just null. Like, I just don't understand it. Like, people's abilities in the body and stuff, like, all of it comes from a lack of understanding. All of it comes from living under a fucking rock. So like, why are topics taboo that we can't talk about it? Because all that does is just create that negative spiral, and it ends up going down. Definitely. So like, like you said, just talk about it. Like we've had conversations, and like, I respect the shit out of it, because then we both know like where to go. It's like if we get in a car, right, and we didn't speak about where we wanted to go, how would I know where to go? How would I know where to drive?
That you're 100% right. And I think, again, growing up, I was really fortunate. Obviously, when I was younger, I had kind of more going on, and I had to kind of get my feet straightened, and it was less able for me to blend in, and kind of hide the disability, I suppose, and kind of appear. Again, I hate the term normal, and I hate the term disabled as well, to be honest. I like the term differently abled, but
yeah, it is though, isn't it?
Yeah, but when I got into high school, I was really kind of, I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to kind of, I can advert, kind of be an advert for it, sort of thing. But then when I started swimming, and again, when people used to, I used to tell people, oh, I've got a disability. You kind of get two sort of looks where it's either A, which is, I suppose in a way is kind of a common, be a surprise. Like, oh, really? I didn't realise. So that's in a way quite nice, but also I kind of sort of say, what does disability look like? Disability isn't just one thing. Disability is a multitude, a plethora of things. Like, it isn't just one particular thing. It's such a wide spectrum. So and then already a little bit kind of almost kind of like either awkwardness or pity. But I'm really sorry about that. What's there to be sorry for? There's no reason to be sorry. It's who I am. It's there's no reason to be sorry. And those are the kind of two main approaches that I kind of always got when I told people that I had a disability. And one thing that always kind of stuck with me at swimming was when I first started. Again, I couldn't do a press up, didn't know like how to really swim any strokes, but I started going. And I think Callum. Yeah, obviously Callum. He's obviously going. He's one of my kind of close friends. I met him through swimming. But when I first started, I didn't know what press was, didn't know what burpee was. And we used to do land training, and the guy said to me, just copy Callum, like, you'll be fine. Like, he knows what he's doing. So I started copying him. But I didn't realize that he was cheating. So I was copying him, but doing it worse. So it made it look like I was just openly cheating. And the guy was like, oh, like, if you're cheating, like, like whenever else gets the rest, you can do a punishment. So I just used to have kind of like do a wall sit holding this bag. And because Callum had the biggest bag, he gave me Callum's bag. And what Callum used to do is that he used to fill his bag full of bottles of, like, full bottles of water, not to drink, just to make his bag heavier. So when I had to do the wall sit, it was with a heavier bag. And I think, again, that sort of thing, he didn't treat me any differently because I have a disability. It was like, I like this guy.
Yeah.
Like, this guy, he isn't, I've got to try and kind of almost kind of like not kind of mess with him. He was like, no, we're going to, just kind of sort of just see what you can do, sort of thing, and kind of like treat me differently. I think I really appreciate that. And I think, again, once people get to know you, and kind of know, again, like, you kind of remove that kind of that kind of lack of understanding and that kind of lack of kind of like their concept of it. They treat you exactly like they treat you as anyway. It's that initial kind of getting kind of that topic broached, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what was what was like what was the difference? I don't want to say difference, like.
Nah, man. Just say what you're feeling, mate.
No, what did it look like? You know, obviously you're born with CP, like what was that initial like? What was the process as you went through, and then like what is it? Because like mate, I've known you for fucking years, and I didn't have a clue. Like it just didn't. And people are like, "Oh, have you not noticed?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, no, and second of all, does it fucking matter?"
Yeah, like, I mean, both prime examples. I think this is one thing as well, is that everyone's different. And then like when I sort of point out what I do differently, people go, "Oh yeah, you do that." But I thought that's what you did. So everyone walks slightly differently. Everyone moves slightly. Everyone's got a different like gait. Everyone's got a different way of speaking. But when you point out, people go, "Oh yeah, I've noticed that." But I just thought that's how you were. And that's exactly. I can say, well, that is how I am.
That is exactly right. Yeah.
You just assume that's how I was. So what difference does putting a term on it mean? But yeah, so with my kind of story around it. So me and my sister were born at 28 weeks. So we were born quite prematurely. And when we were born, she was the first twin out and I was the second born twin. And I came out feet first, which obviously caused a few more problems. So there was obviously being born prematurely, there was a 40-minute delay between us. And in the end, they just had to kind of sort of pull me out. And they sort of said to my mum, like, again, with cerebral palsy, you can't say, like, they couldn't say for definite. They said that there's a high likelihood that he's going to have, he's going to have cerebral palsy. We think it, from what the kind of tested is, we think it's going to be laterally based. And I've got spastic hemiplegia, which is a weakness down the left-hand side of my body, or on one side of my body. The new when I was born, that my feet were rotated internally, so they said that that's going to be a difficult thing. Like we're going to have to, he might have to walk on crutches with a frame. He might be totally fine. Like at that point, they couldn't say. So I think my mum just sort of said like, right, we're just gonna kind of get them the best support that we can. We're going to see what happens. Again, like obviously my mum being my mum, so he's sort of he's going to have like leg weakness. He's really going to struggle with walking, sort of thing. And mum was like, right, yeah. Do you know that those baby bouncers, like you can put in the doorways and there's kind of the baby bouncers in them. She was like, right, just gonna whack him in there for a few hours each day, get the leg gains in, sort of thing. I think having an able-bodied twin really helped me, because obviously you can watch what they're going to do and watch what they're doing, how they do things, and also kind of then again to kind of sort of tailor that view. So my mum always said I was always slower, like learn to walk, learn to crawl, learn to do everything, but I'd eventually get there. And it's kind of, again, I suppose not kind of being like we expect this, we expect this now, we expect this then. I think if you didn't, if you weren't told your baby had cerebral palsy, you wouldn't expect them to do, like you'd let them do it in their own time, sort of thing. I think that was the same thing. And then when I was little, I used to have to wear kind of custom made boots that kind of bent my feet straight. So a bit like braces for your teeth, but instead for your feet. So kind of once a month I'd go to kind of hospital and they'd just slowly, gradually kind of rotate my feet straight. And then, yeah, I mean, because from then on, really, it wasn't, I was really fortunate that I kind of had, kind of weekly physio, kind of regular doctor's appointments, and they really kind of stayed on top of it so that I didn't get, my contractions in my left hand didn't get much worse than it already was. I still had kind of good use of my left hand. It was only when I started swimming and obviously kind of developing more muscle mass that the kind of increased tone, increased CNS activity, that it caused kind of more issues with my mobility, the use of my hand. And that was kind of a really tough thing, because it was kind of, I enjoyed the sport and I enjoyed doing what I'm doing, but is it worth at the cost of kind of my own kind of physical health? Kind of I was kind of having more issues with walking, more issues with kind of using my left hand. And then I was really fortunate. I've been in hospitals all across the Northwest. Kind of from day one, so I'm really used to being in hospital. So I was never one of those kids who was scared to go in hospital. It was kind of sort of my kind of monthly trip out sort of thing. It was kind of an expected thing. when I started working at the hospital, I knew the only route that I knew in the hospital was from where my mum worked to the gift shop. I used to go there after every kind of doctor's appointment. She used to take me to the gift shop and buy me sweets. So that's the only kind of route I knew in the hospital when I first started. But I was really fortunate that I was at Wrightington in Wigan, and one of the registrars there sort of said, "Oh, there's a trial starting in Cancer Chester to kind of, it's a Botox trial, so they're going to inject Botox into your contracted limbs, and that'll obviously, the impact of Botox will be kind of, obviously it would kind of minimize the kind of the stimulation, so therefore the contractions would kind of obviously kind of essentially revert. Obviously then it can give you an opportunity to obviously kind of strengthen those weaker muscles and obviously kind of limit, again kind of improve the kind of use of the limb. So I obviously agreed to do it, and it really was massively beneficial. So I've got kind of full movement in my left hand again and everything like that, and that was huge for me. But again, with disability, everyone's different. You know, everyone's, you know, experience is different. Everyone's, especially with cerebral palsy, because obviously it's involved in the brain. You know, it's such an unknown entity. Like, we know so much, we still have so much left to learn, that you can't expect, you know, like, no one's gonna have the exact same cerebral palsy, no one's gonna have the exact same injury, so you can't expect the exact same outcomes. And, you know, I think that's why, again, the treatment needs to be so diverse and so kind of, you know, person specific, because it's so unique and it's so individual. So yeah, I think that's kind of my kind of tale of kind of having cerebral palsy. But, you know, I still, when I work out, I still have, you know, kind of spasms, and I obviously the contracted, obviously when I'm kind of more kind of taxed kind of central in method nervous system, it obviously the contractor does kind of come back, but I have more control over it, if that makes sense. So I can choose when, you know, when to, you know, when it's, I suppose, kind of more appropriate to have kind of flexion in my hand and flexion in my kind of leg. But yeah, it's something I've never seen. You know, it definitely makes things harder, but it gives you kind of more to kind of think about, I suppose, and kind of how can I approach this? And obviously, when you're shown to do things, you're shown how they would do it. So you think, well, how am I going to do it? So it kind of gives you kind of more of a kind of open mind, kind of to approach kind of problems and such, which I think is really,
sure.
really.
How's been doing CrossFit? What's it been like?
So again, I suppose with everything, when I first meet people, and I also I tell the thing that, you know, I'm confident about, you know, when this, but when I first started, like, especially doing kind of stuff on the assault bike, on the rower, especially kind of like more kind of complex lifting as well, like where it's kind of full body and it really is, you know, taxing movements for the CNS. I would kind of start firing. I would start toe walking, because again, it's my left hand side, so it's obviously my left leg, my kind of like left extremity. So obviously I would start toe walking. I would start obviously kind of having kind of more flexion in my hand. And I remember kind of at first, obviously, and I'd be kind of firing as well. So I kind of be having kind of spasms in the kind of obviously my neck and my trap and my shoulder, and I'd kind of pull my head to the side. And I remember at first being really kind of like, oh my God, like, what are they going to think? What are they going to say? And then when I realized no one cares, you know, I was like, oh, sweet. Again, I think that is the main point of it. Like, no one cares what you do as long as you, like, you know, as long as you kind of, you're in there, you're working hard, you know, like, and I think I like that, because again, they're not treating it different. Like, a lot of people saying that's a no rep. I'm like, you're right, it is a no rep. Like, you know, I've got to make sure I lock it out fully with both arms, you know. So I enjoy, you know, I was nervous at first, but I you know, I was quickly kind of learned that it was nothing, like, no one cares, you know, you're just there working as hard as you can. So it isn't a big thing.
What advice would you give to people, whether they're a coach or not? It doesn't really matter. Like, what advice would you give to people that are interacting with, you know, a differently able body athlete, whether they're high up or not? Would you be like, just give them the fucking same shit?
I wouldn't go out immediately and say give them the same. I think the biggest thing you do is just talk to them and have that honest conversation and say, all right, it isn't, you know, what can you do, it's what can you do, and what can we do to support you to do everything that you can do. So there's so many like examples where like you can see people doing things, and it's just like, right, so you can't do that, but or you can't do that yet. But what can we do to scaffold it in a way that we can still get the same stimulus, the same outcomes? Because at the end of the day, like, you know, it's still just scaling. It's just, instead of using a different way or like or a different movement, you're just doing, exactly, you're using a slightly different movement. You're doing the same thing, you're getting the same benefit. But I think it's having, obviously, again, you don't want to walk. I mean, again, as I said, with disability, it's the same with people. You know, it's unique to every person. Some people, like, if someone comes and says to me, tell me about your cerebral palsy, I'm like, sit down, get a cup of coffee. You know, this is going to be a long chat. But some people are, you know, still, I mean, it's who you are as a person. You know, some people are quite, you know, kind of quite shy about this disability, that they don't want to talk about it, which is totally cool. But, you know, you need to kind of get to know the person and then say, right, as a coach, we need to know, you know, we want to give you the best possible programming. So we want to know, how, you know, what's going to work for you, and, you know, how can we work together? And again, as with any coaching, you know, with any coaching, any athletes, how can we work together to get the best for you? And I'm sure you agree that the key thing in that is communication.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, to be honest, like coaching wise and why CrossFit is so good. Like, even when people have injuries, like, you can still fucking come into a class. So all it is different. People have different limitations. People have different things going on. They might not even want to deadlift today because they're so fucking fried. It's like, no problem. Like, I've had people come in that are absolutely buggered. I've had people come in who's like pushing athlete, sort of, I want to compete sort of thing. And then I've also had a lady who's late in her 60s that kind of just wants to be able to move around and get somewhat of a sweat on, because that's the only time she's got out of her rocking chair, which is sound. And then you also get people that are like hearing impaired, and, you know, they need to be at the front. So then you need to project your voice, but at an angle so they can lip read you. Or you then, you know, you learn a little bit of sign. So then you can sort of see it. Like, all it is different limitations. I think it's fucking fascinating. I love coaching the whole thing, because then, like, you're like, oh, this is sick, because I get an opportunity to practice, to learn, and to also deliver exactly the same thing, but in like 16 different ways. And mate, it's fucking cool.
It's having challenges yourself, because like sometimes you're thinking, right, like, how can I think out of the box there? How can I do this differently? And that's expanding your repertoire and expanding your ability and challenging you, and that's making you a better coach. And, you know, I was really fortunate actually in the program when I was swimming. There was a swimmer there who was deaf. She was actually a deaf Olympian. Danielle Joy, she's an incredible athlete. But she was deaf, and again, just learning how it, like, obviously she could speak sign fluently. She's like an ambassador for loads of deaf, you know, deaf sport, deaf charities. She's an awesome person, and she really kind of, I mean, for me and for many other people, I'm sure, kind of really kind of opened my eyes, kind of what, again, because, you know, being deaf, people really kind of see, if you say disability, the 9 out of 10 people think someone in a wheelchair, and that isn't disability. Disability is multiple different avenues, you know. And so she kind of really kind of points out, like, sometimes, again, it's how, again, things that people want to realize that they can make things difficult for, you know, for people, like, you know, for deaf people, for, you know, and visually impaired people, for learning impaired people, for, you know, kind of mentally, you know, people with mental, you know, issues, you know, disabilities. It's little things that you aren't aware of, but then when someone opens your eyes and makes you aware of it, you think, wow, I've been so kind of narrow-minded. And then when someone's kind of said to you, you know, because like DJ, like, she was like, I didn't really, again, she's so good at lip reading that I didn't, like, again, if no one told me, I'd be like, I wouldn't know. So it's, again, you know, having your kind of mind, kind of having your horizons broadened, sort of thing.
It's incredible, man. Like, I've got an athlete at the moment that's like hearing impaired, and she's been through a couple of things, like, you know, early childhood, early teenagers. So her development, atrophy wise, has been major. So like her development is like a lot less, and had early onset like osteoporosis and things like that. So it's like, oh wow, like this is not obviously awesome, but it also is, because we get to delve and help you Like, well, I get to help you in like so many different avenues. And like, we kind of, there's certain things that we kind of like conduct in sign. But I'll make sure like it's, you know, like again and understand. And, you know, you kind of like, you know, 9, 10, we kind of like, we just, I don't know, like it's a learning curve. We can still talk to each other. It's a learning curve for me to not mumble and slur my words and use as much Manx slang, and you know what I mean. But then it's just like, okay, like I just nip on the phone and get the fucking New Zealand Sign Language dictionary up. We have a little chat. What's your word of the day? Oh, my word of the day is this. What's yours? And like, I don't know. And then you sort of you dissect through that. And I think one that I had recently, which was really interesting, was Tourette's and ADHD. So I've coached Tourette's before, I've coached ADHD before, I've coached ADD before, I've coached like you name it. Like I'll have coached it. Like I've like a PE teacher in a city school in Manchester. So a lot of people, a lot of kids ended up having all sorts of stuff. But I'd never just out of just coincidence, I'd never had the combination of the two, which was really like really interesting. And it was like you're like in my sort of experience anyway, you had to put your foot down, but in a sign of authoritative but a calm manner. Especially when it was a young lad where like parents are separated, so then that poses other questions and other hard things that you got to do, and like all those little intricacies that come together, mate. Even if we use the term fully abled, right? Because who the fuck is fully abled? Let's be honest. But you class the term as fully abled or normal or whatever, and I use those quotation marks because I think it's bullshit, just like you, mate. But like we've all got limitations, and we've all got those lines psychologically that you just can't cross, because it'll just send us in a spiral. Whether it's childhood trauma, whether it's fucking you can't use the left side of your body, whether it is you have no legs, whether it is you're deaf, blind, or whatever. We all have limitations. And like to be able to like break that stigma is being like, all right, cool, let's talk about it, so I don't upset you by saying something that's, you know, saying something that I shouldn't, and two, so I can fucking like we can just like divert the path a little bit, so then we just keep going.
So we can work exactly that. So you know, you bang on, mate. It's, you know, let's talk about let's get us so we're both on the same page, so we're both singing from the same hymn sheet. You know, and it is just again about being, again just being, again as you know, as you say, you know, everyone has something, and it's you know it's again how everyone adapts. It's human nature to adapt. It's actually not even human. It's you know, it's every organism has to adapt, evolve to survive. So if you're put under a certain pressure, you're going to find a way to adapt, or you're going to cease to exist, sort of thing. And so everyone's constantly adapting, everyone's constantly doing things slightly differently. And I think once people kind of wrap their head around that and realize that there is no one perfect human being who can do everything, then you kind of something like, oh wow, you know. And I think again, it's when you watch athletes. I mean, again, I think we go back to sport because I think that's our background. When you watch athletes at the elite level, you look at someone and go, well, he's, you know, a world, you know, an Olympic finalist, but he's from completely differently to this chap next to him, who's also a world finalist. So you think, if there's multiple ways to do things, that means that there's more than one way to do things. So why can't my way be one of the ways that works?
See, I think weightlifting is one of the best examples for that, because it's 3 movements, right? It's the snatch, the clean, and the jerk. Granted, you teach the back squat and all those other like pulls and high pull and muscle snatch. Yeah, accessory stuff. But at the end of the day, like when you're on the platform, you're going to do 6 lifts. 3 of them are going to be the snatch. 3 of them, you're going to clean it, and then you're going to obviously jerk it or attempt to do all 3 of those movements. And like you've got Western style, you've got Eastern style, you've got Eastern block, you've got the Chinese style, you've got all these different things. You've got the combination of the two. You've got more hybrids, you've got like more progressive, more like old school, but it's the same fucking lifts. Like someone can weigh the same. They won't look the same for sure, but they could weigh the same. They could be in the same category, lifting exactly the same amount of weight, have exactly the same like power to weight ratio, yet it looks completely different and they look completely different. And I'm just like, so why should we be reading from a textbook and be like, nah, you have to do this? Because I'm like,
this way, this is the way you do it.
Exactly.
No, it isn't the way.
It's not the way, mate.
You say that this is the way that you do it, but do you want to try it this way and see how this way works for you? That's totally fine. You can try different ways. I'd encourage that, because if you can do something multiple different ways, you're probably more likely to be not injure yourself, but also having that in your locker just makes it you a more rounded athlete, a more complete athlete. But saying to someone the way you do it is wrong, as a coach, you've completely kind of shot yourself. You've done the wrong thing. You shouldn't ever tell someone that they're wrong. You can say that's not the way that I would do it. If you try this way, it might be better for you. But if you want to keep going on that route, and as long as they're not compromising themselves, if it's dangerous or unsafe, that's when I'd say you've got to kind of stop doing that. But if they're getting the same stimulus, the same attainment out of it, then crack on.
But it's like something that I say regularly is you teach the movement, but you coach the individual.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah,
and it's everyone's going to be taught the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we're all not going to do it the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
Enough said.
And if everyone did it the same way, it'd be such a boring thing, because it would eventually come down to then. If everyone does it the same way, you'd eventually just find an ideal height and weight rate, as you say, an ideal again, I go back to swimming, but Phelps was literally biologically he was designed to be a good swimmer. Long arms, long torso, short legs, double jointed, large feet, large hands. He was designed to be excellent in the water. However, if you just had where everyone did the exact same thing, there just eventually could come a time where eventually you got the right biological combination of things that may be the best. But then that'd be boring, because then you just go to preschool and be like, right, he's got the right attributes, he's gonna be a weightlifter. Mm-hmm. He's gonna be a good swimmer. And then that just takes it out of it. So in football, you people like Paul Scholes, 5 foot whatever, 5 foot nothing, ginger lad, but could ping the ball about for fun. Messi, if you just looked at him when he was a kid, with shin splints as well, you'd say no, no way. If you looked at, and then you get athletes like Jordan, like Dressel. I'm not sure if you've kept track of ISL in the last couple of years, but Dressel's to me, they're like athletes where you can put them in any game, any sport situation, and they do really well. Like you could put Dressel in the 100 meters in athletics, and he'd smash it. You put him in the javelin, he'd smash that. You put him in football, he'd smash that. He's one of those athletes where you can put him anywhere and he'd do great things. But that's what you sort of want. You sort of want someone, or you want to kind of almost have that surprise, like Kasuke Higino, 400 meter medley. He won the 400 meter medley at Rio. He's 5'8". He's not your typical swimmer build, but his technique is like if you designed a robot to swim, that's what you made them do, sort of thing. And so having that diversity among athletes actually makes the sport a spectacle and a spectator, something that you want to watch, because it is multiple different avenues, it's multiple different things. It's what's going to work best.
Yeah, there's always going to be outliers, right? And you can't just genetically engineer something and they're going to be perfect, because we're fucking human beings. It doesn't end up working and it works on paper, but then it doesn't work in reality, or it doesn't work 100% of the time. So because you can't guarantee a W, you can't guarantee a world record every time or a win, it poses that question. Every coach in the back of their mind's like, well, we can't guarantee a win, so we've not found the perfect formula. And every coach in the world fucking knows they are never going to find a perfect formula, but every coach will die trying.
Yeah, that's it. And again, I think as we kind of alluded to earlier in our discussion, there are multiple different ways to do a certain thing, and I think every coach will back a certain one, because that's what they're the most positive experience with. But that will, and I think, as you say, also having athletes who know multiple different, but having coaches who know multiple different teaching points, because as we said before, sometimes you'll explain something to an athlete and they'll just look at you blankly, and they'll have no idea what you just said to them. Like, you might as well be speaking a different language, because they'll be like, what's he just said? And then you'll explain it in a different way and use different, use different cues or different methodology to kind of approach the same task and be like, oh, I get that. And that's so crucial in teaching and coaching, is to be able to kind of have different paths to the same goal, and kind of show people kind of multiple different avenues and say which of these suits you best. And that, is massively important when you coaching any sort of athlete, really, is to have that kind of ability to say, right, what do you want to try? What do you want to do? And letting the kind of the individual have that freedom of kind of choosing their own kind of, or what suits them best. And also, once they've chosen something, you can then say to them, try this, try that, try, and kind of give them kind of different things to try, because that might benefit them. And I say there's no one size fits all. There's no perfect kind of formula for coaching an athlete, because if there was, as you say, we'd have kind of like elite superhuman athletes. That'd be kind of, it'd almost be boring to coach. You're like, yeah, you've just broken the world record. There's nothing more that I can tell you to do, because I've given you the formula, so just crack on. I'll sit in the back. If you want your bottle filling up, I'll do that,
Yeah, I mean, what about?
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost good that there's no perfect athlete, or and I think when I was teaching, actually, what the head of the department in the last school that I was in, I watched him do a lesson. He was incredible, like one of the best teachers. I've worked with many great teachers, but he was one of the best I've seen. I sort of said after the lesson, I was like, this is, I kind of was telling him, like, it was incredible. This is awesome. Yeah. He said to me, like, I'm a good teacher, but I'm not the finished article. Like, if you think you're the finished article, like you think you're the best that you can be, stop, give up, go do something else, because you're never going to be you're never going to be the finished article. You're never going to be the done deal. You're never going to get there and be like, I'm the best at everything. Like, there's nothing I can do to improve. There's always something you can do differently, or something you can try to make it better. And I think, athletes like that, like athletes like Ronaldo, who do just try every little thing, every last, because sort of kind of the no stone unturned mantra, where he will try absolutely everything, is really kind of, is awesome to see, because, that's again a different level of dedication.
Yeah, 100%, man. And like, nothing is ever 100 out of 100. And if you don't have the passion to try something, different, to then better yourself as an individual and the craft that you have chosen to pursue, then it's not the right one to pursue. Life is short, but life is also a long fucking time. And if you're going to be like, oh yeah, okay, that's good enough, and cap yourself and put yourself in that box and put a ceiling above yourself, then like, what's the point? Like, you might as well just end the game now and save and quit. You know what I mean? Log off the system, like fucking Mr. Total used to say. It's just like, like, the whole point is taking yourself, like, doing whatever you need to do, going through whatever psychological battles, physiological battles you need to do inside the box to figure out that life actually fucking starts when you take off the lid, hop out of it, and now you no longer have a limitation on yourself. Now you can literally do whatever the fuck you want to do. All you got to do is do the frigging work.
That's it.
Keep learning.
It's so true.
Keep falling down, keep getting back up, keep striving, keep learning, keep fucking up, keep going forward. That's it. That's all it is.
I think again, I could be totally wrong here, but I think it was Henry Ford who said, "If you say you can't, you're probably right. But if you say you can, you're also probably right."
I'm not sure about that one, but it comes from he who says he can, he who says he can't are both usually right, and it's from Confucius.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's exactly that. Like, you're only kind of limited by what you're kind of willing to sort of kind of what you kind of mentally what you're mentally willing to kind of say, because everyone as individuals are capable of great things, and I think we see that in kind of every walk of life, whether it's in business like Bezos, or in kind of science and technology like Musk, or in sport like like Dressel, like Bolt. You see these people, and they're the sort of people who've kind of almost gone like, right, I'm gonna kind of like, there's no limit for me. I'm gonna set the pace, sort of thing. There's nothing limiting me, so let's see how far we can go. I think once you kind of get to that, like, kind of that mindset, like Petey at the minute in swimming, he's just totally focused on just, because there's no one near enough to him in the 100 breaststroke to. It's not him racing on people; it's him racing himself. I think that's such a a big motivator. Like it's now not. It's not to do with anyone else. It's to do with just you. And that's fundamentally what it's got to be. It can't be about beating other people. It's got to be about bettering yourself. And again, with CrossFit, you know, also again, everyone likes to race, but everyone wants to kind of finish first. But if you're, you know, 10 seconds better than what you were 2 years ago, you know that you've improved. You know that you've done better, and that's, you know, kind of self-improvement is the biggest, or should be the biggest driver for everyone really. Again, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's, you know, in your, you know, your kind of work life, whether it's in your kind of mental health, as long as you're progressing, you're developing, you're moving forwards, that's all that anyone can really hope for.
That's it, man. It's all about growth, right? It's all about like learning the lesson that you need to and kind of taking those steps forwards, those small like little increments to grow and do whatever you need to do. Like, you know, if you win a race, right, but you stopped 20 meters before the fucking wall because everyone else was so far behind you and you just doggy paddled to the finish. Granted, you won a race and you got a gold medal, but did you swim a good race?
Yeah, exactly, mate. I think, you know, Pete, he said himself, you know, I've read articles, I've read kind of interviews with him where he said he kind of went through almost kind of like a bit of a dark place where he was like, I'm the best in the world. You know, the nearest person to me is, you know, a second and a half behind, which is, you know, leaps and bounds and, you know, kind of terms of swimming. And when he didn't have that challenge anymore, like almost kind of like your whole life you're working towards kind of winning that medal, you know, kind of being the world record holder, kind of, and once he kind of won all the medals that you could win and broken the world record and be the world record holder, he sort of was like, what else is there now? Like, what else can I do? And it took him quite a while to kind of almost kind of get out of that kind of mindset of, I've done everything I can, and kind of, you know, now I'm going to push and go further than anyone else. I'm going to go as far as I possibly can and really kind of make that world record as low as it can possibly be.
That's where you start fixating on like how you can become better and those lessons and, you know, learning and taking steps forward, and you start looking yourself in the mirror, like metaphorically speaking, I know actually looking yourself in the mirror, but it's just like, how the fuck can I like do something better to defeat me? And that's where the real fucking growth comes from. Like that's where you end up like creating some like real lasting incredible things. That's where the, you know, that Elon Musk, Vaynerchuk, fucking Mandela's, like all these, that's how they get there. It's not from how can I beat Pete in the pool?
Yeah.
Not how can I beat everyone else because fuck you, the gold medal's mine. It's just like, nah, like how can I end up, you know, whether it takes you 2 weeks or whether it takes you fucking 200 years, how can you end up sort of just putting a layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer and keep getting further up to the top? Like I heard a quote from Gary Vaynerchuk, not crazy recently, but pretty recently, that literally just hit home for me. It was like hitting a home run. It was just like, all right, that's it. It was like, there's 2 ways to build the biggest building. One, you spend all your time and energy ripping every other building down to the ground. Yeah. So yours is the biggest building. Or 2, you build the biggest fucking building.
Yeah. That is, again, such a good kind of point. Because again, you as you say, you can choose to kind of, I think, you know, that's one issue in disability sport, which kind of, I think was one of the few kind of sour things that I had about it, was where obviously we're all classified, we're all put in different classifications. And I think in swimming, it was kind of one of the few kind of, if not the only sport left where everyone kind of competes against one another. Like, you know, so you get kind of, you know, people with achondroplasia, amputees, cerebral palsy, and it's all, you're all classified together and you're all given a certain classification, then you race against other people. So like I'd be swimming and I was an S8, so I swam against people with, you know, amputations, people, you know, cerebral palsy, people, you know, all different types of disabilities. But we all competed together. But the thing that I disliked about it was that you get people saying, I should be an S7, I should be an S, you know, an S5, I should be, and it took away from the sport for me, because whenever anyone did anything incredible, like you see someone smash a world record, for example, you immediately, everyone's sort of saying, they're in a too low class, they should be in the class above, like, you know, and then you almost, instead of kind of being there and saying, that's an incredible sport and feat, that's an incredible, that they've just set a new standard. They've kind of, you know, all their training's paid off. It's immediately, instead of that kind of feeling, it's almost kind of a negative. Like people are saying, immediately kind of almost kind of accusing them of kind of cheating, of kind of misrepresenting themselves. And it's become a really unfortunate, a really big kind of topic in sport. And that's one thing that I kind of, towards the end of my career, it was becoming more and more kind of a topic that people were kind of bringing up. And it really kind of detracted away from the sport for me. I think, as you say, you've got a choice to either be the best athlete, build yourself up and be the best athlete you can, or you have the opportunity to, instead of kind of, doing that, you can tear other athletes down and say, you're in the wrong class, you're in the wrong class, I should be in a lower class, you should be in a higher class. And I think my mantra towards it was, don't worry about what class you're in, just do the best that you can do, But so many people are fixated on again, it's one of those things where people say to me, if I was a class lower, I'd be the world record holder. And I was like, well, if it rained chocolate milk, I drink rainwater, sort of thing. You're talking about things that don't happen. You're not talking about things that actually are occurring. So if you like be in the moment, be in reality, be realistic, and deal with the cards that you've been dealt, sort of thing.
Yeah, play the hand you dealt. Because at the end of the day, you're playing cards, you get dealt your hand. What are you gonna do? Oh no, this is a shit hand. Can I get another one?
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. No. So you can't kind of say hypothetically. Exactly. You can't say hypothetically, if I was in this class, I'd be the world record holder. Because whilst that might be true, it isn't the current situation. So
hypothetically,
instead of crying over that,
no one cares.
Crack on and do the best you can do. And if that is the case, it'll eventually come to light, sort of thing. So it's one thing that I really enjoyed about disability swimming is that it was one of the few kind of multi kind of disability sports, whereas so many sports now are all separated based on there'll be a certain classification for amputees, a certain classification for cerebral palsy, a certain classification for. And it just means that the sport's so separated, and you're not it's not a celebration of everyone's ability. You're kind of separating everyone out. I think that's just limiting the challenge that you face. Because again, if you're just with people who are just like you, you're not having. It's only kind of one experience in it. It's not competing as different people and kind of challenging yourself in different ways, I suppose.
So yeah, it's just like single-sex schools, right? You don't get the exposure to the other gender. So then when people actually get out to the real world, they end up treating the other gender like a piece of shit, but simply because they don't know how to fucking communicate, and they don't know how to express what's going on inside themselves to someone that might not be getting the same feeling, because biologically we are rather different. Same thing with differently abled athletes, differently abled everyday Joes. If you're not exposed to those people that have different things, whether it's mental issues, whether it's physical issues, whether it's both, if you're not exposed to it, how are you going to know how to deal with it? How are you going to know how it's the whole thing of if that would have happened to me, I would have sparked his lights out. I'm like, mate, have you ever been in a confrontation situation? It's no. I was like, exactly. You don't know how you'd fucking react because you've not been in that situation. So shut up.
Yeah, I think one thing for me, especially as well, is that again, one reason why I love swimming is that para swimming is that you knew there's never any doubt there, because you've raced against everyone that you could possibly race against. So you knew you'd if you won, you knew that you were the best there. Whereas in say athletics, where it is separated by disabilities, you might be the fastest amputee runner, but you wouldn't know if you're the fastest there on the day, because there might be a similarly disabled cerebral palsy athlete who's actually faster than you, but you would never know because you both competed separately.
Yeah.
And I think as all sports should be as inclusive as possible, and should pull from as many different parties as possible, and kind of create that kind of, again, it's obviously it's idealistic, but create a kind of an environment where everyone can compete together and everyone can experience this sport in a kind of group, and kind of in a community fashion where everyone's involved, rather than kind of being kind of one day you guys race, one day you guys race, one day you guys race. You should try and get it all together, and hopefully that is what is moving towards. Because again, I mean, even after I was only in parasport for 5 years, but in that time, it moved towards much more towards kind of just joint meets where it was you had able-bodied and para athletes competing in the same events. And that was I prefer that much more, because it is, again, it's just breaking down those barriers, breaking down those walls, and also again kind of starting discussions that would be much more difficult to have if it was separate meets, sort of thing. So that's really, I just say, really important that you are always kind of trying to keep it, kind of be inclusive, essentially.
Yeah, 100%. Like allowing and giving those opportunities and being accessible to all should be the idea, right? Like there's going to be things that aren't a clever idea, like for example, playing wheelchair basketball and basketball on the same game. Like, it's like that's not wise. It's the same reason why male and female don't compete against each other. It shouldn't happen, but however, they should be able to sort of be in the same vicinity and be in the same tournament rather than be completely different. It's the whole thing about equal pay with men and women in professional sport. I'm like, there shouldn't be a male and a female. There should be fucking pro sport and two categories of it.
And again, I keep banging on about swimming, but obviously it's what I know and love. But one massive thing which I thought it was such an incredible thing. So I felt like so many other sports have opportunities but don't do it. And I think swimming really took the first step with it. Was doing mixed medley relays, kind of getting both male and females racing in the same relay. And again, it allowed for so much more kind of strategy, so much more tactics, so much more because you could have obviously 2 males and 2 females. And you could pick whether you had your male and female, like whether you could pick whether you could have a female butterfly, female breaststroke, or a female. You could pick and choose obviously your best athletes. And I think that just really breaks down those barriers and really allows for I was so proud of, I think, being part of the sport when that happened, because you don't see it in athletics, you don't see it in football, where you get male and females playing on the same team, because it could definitely happen, but no one's taken that step yet.
I mean, you see it in tennis, you see it in
tennis badminton is a great example.
You got the mixed doubles and that, but I mean, sports where it becomes physicality comes involved, I'm not really too sure.
And again, I can see that point, but also I think if the participants are willing and that they know what they're in store for, but as you say, it's one of the things where again, I think it's something that needs to, at the very least, be discussed in every sport. Because again, especially, I say, in tennis, in badminton, in swimming, it's been really, really, really kind of warmly received. It's really added a whole new dynamic, which I think it is only for the betterment of the sport. I think, as you say, anything, where being more inclusive and being kind of again challenging those kind of older stereotypes really are good things to do.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying like I've put all my chips on a yes or I've put all my chips on a no. Like I have no idea. Who am I to say what's right and wrong? I just like having the discussion, like
that's it.
Yeah, once you speak to people in different, with different things, different countries, whatever, different organizations, governing bodies, like you can then develop your point of view. And again, nothing's set in stone. It's not like, all right, I have all the pieces of information I know, my answer is yes, because it can fucking change. Like things adapt, and there's different ways to be able to do it. Like I would just say I would be unsure. Like, for example, a sport like ruggers, I wouldn't be like, right, you need, we're going to play 14 aside. So we're going to take out whatever, we're going to play 14 aside and 7 of them have to be male, 7 of them have to be female. I'll be like, I don't think that's the way to do it, because granted, there's going to be women that will be able to absolutely destroy some blokes, which is like, same with male and male and female, but I don't know. I just wouldn't know.
Exactly that. Like, I think, as you just alluded to, it's just having that open discussion, because even just having people of different ideas and different backgrounds and different because I mean, as you said, you could have a 14-side match. It could be 7 males, 7 females, but that might not be the best way to do it. But maybe if you had one half played by the males of both teams, then one in the second half, if the females played, it was the same scoreline. They just carried on from where they left off, and then it's still a mixed match, but it's half played by men, half played by females, and you kind of getting that kind of both, that kind of combination of.
I think the way to do it would be like to have like it's the same governing body, but it's split into 2 separate categories. So they're all under the same umbrella rather than being in 2 separate umbrellas, because one will inevitably be funded better than the other, which obviously we see now with the Olympics being better funded than the Paralympics, and male sport being better funded than the female sport, and then kind of having like 3 separate leagues. So you could have like 3 separate tournaments. So like the male tournament, obviously the female tournament, and then like the combination of the 2. So if
Indeed, I mean, as you say, exactly that. Like you could almost kind of have the male points and have the female points and then combine them.
Yeah. So it'd be like, oh yeah, great. Like you might be league champions in your female division, but as a whole, your club is not quite there yet. Or you could be second, like and win overall, and just be like, you're actually a great unified combined club because you provide equal opportunities for both sides. And you can even have smack in a like a 4th one and just be like, the 3rd league before you go into the combination of all of them would be differently abled, would be like parasport.
Definitely.
And then again, there's 3 separate categories, but I mean that'd be insane.
Yeah,
that would be absolutely incredible, and it'd be so cool to watch. However, like it would take so long to then come into fruition.
Organization, it would be insane. But I think the point we just proved there that if you wanted to do it and if you really were driven, you could do it.
Yeah,
I think that's one big thing that's come out of the ISL is that, I mean, as you say, like obviously you kind of alluded to, kind of obviously certain sports are much better fun than other sports. And I think from my point of view, swimming was so, like, unless you're an elite athlete, it was so underfunded. Whereas now, with the ISL, obviously that development, you can have kind of lots of athletes being professional and kind of earning really good kind of wages and like wages where you can actually survive comfortably and actually then just dedicate your entire time to swimming rather than having to kind of maybe constantly worry about a second job, so on and so forth. I think it's the same with CrossFit. Up until recently, maybe even kind of 4 or 5 years ago, like the CrossFit champions were still working full-time jobs because they couldn't afford to support themselves with just CrossFit alone. I think once you take away that kind of financial concern, the financial worry, that's when sport really becomes it kind of takes that next step in kind of its level of eliteness, because you really are then kind of seeing what athletes can do who are fully committed, fully dedicated to just trying to perfect their sport. And up until recently, like swimming was never treated that way, and I think it just took one kind of kind of a few kind of athletes to say, hang on, if we can try and do this and get someone on board who's willing to finance it, which is this Ukrainian oil arc who funds the entire ISL. But now they've done that, they've allowed athletes now to be kind of much more well supported. Now I reckon in the next, probably in kind of 2024 rather than 2021 now, but we're going to see much better athletes because they're now fully supported to do what they do best, sort of thing. I think that's just obviously money isn't the be all and end all. Like you don't need to be kind of absolutely flush with cash to be a good athlete, but not having the financial worry and financial concern and having access to the best possible equipment and facilities and kit really will help that progression, that development. So, and it's the same with female sport. You see it so often, that you see the male equivalents playing at Old Trafford, playing at the Etihad, playing at Stamford Bridge, and the female teams are playing on like development pitches, and you think, well, if you don't give them that opportunity and that level of funding as well, and that kind of fanfare, and that obviously just because it's been rooted in our history that it's just been male dominated football doesn't mean it can't change in the future. I think hopefully obviously kind of with more and more kind of younger people kind of coming through and obviously kind of following both sides, it'll hopefully develop in the future. But the hope is that, again, all sports can be like that, because obviously weightlifting's taken massive cuts in funding in recent years. It damages the sport, because if your athletes can't be stable and can't be financially stable, they're not going to pursue the sport. You'd rather be playing the third division of football and earn 2K a week than being an elite weightlifter and then less than that. Some decisions are financially motivated.
Weightlifting is a different one, man, because the PEDs is deeply rooted in the sport, and it's notorious you'll never make any money in weightlifting. You'll make money when you finish your weightlifting career or through sponsor or whatever, and you need to be creme de la creme to ever get anywhere. And then it still poses the question of are you on drugs? Which is, I had a really good discussion with Freya Morrow on here a few weeks ago, where it was just is the idea of two separate leagues going like powerlifting and having two separate world champions of tested and untested divisions the way to go for weightlifting? And I'm not really too sure. World championships would be really cool, and it'd be easy to do, but you obviously can't do that with the Olympics. And because it is an Olympic sport, athletes that are untested for world championships will 110% still cycle on and off for the Olympic Games.
And obviously, I mean, as with also any sort of cycling, it's going to have lasting effects. So even if you stop cycling, say a year out from the Olympics, you'll still have the impact of those drugs in your system.
Yeah.
Right. So even if you are clean for the Olympics, it won't be you won't still you'll still have the benefits of that kind of cycling. It was one of my friends. I think it's one thing that is discussed quite a lot, but I think he wrote wrote a paper on wrote this on kind of clean and kind of doing almost similar to what you discussed a few years ago, kind of almost like a clean league, and then also kind of just a doping kind of just to see what would sort of kind of what is the peak, what is if we do everything in our power and kind of use every sort of performance enhancing drug, what could we get to? But then you almost kind of sort of that isn't, again, it probably would attract a lot of attention, it probably would have a lot of viewership, it probably would be well funded, but also you're almost kind of sort of then overshadowing clean sport. And obviously it's a really kind of, I suppose, a really debated topic, isn't it? Whether or not that should be allowed, but it's something that I kind of go back and forth on. So I think I'd like to see what a person could do theoretically with all every sort of performance enhancing thing involved, but also A, is it safe, and B, would it detract from clean sport? And that's the sort of thing you have to weigh up, I suppose.
Yeah, man. And the safety issue, I don't think it is an issue, because it's elite sport. Is it safe? Well,
True.
Who knows? Is it healthy?
Yeah.
Fuck no. So is it safe? Well, probably not. But like you said, will it detract from clean sport? Possibly, yeah. So do we want to sort of create something like that that's going to do that? Probably not. However, do we want to just allow, for every way of detection of a PED, there's 10 different ways to be able to get out of it. Yeah. So do we still want to be able to allow that? Or do we be hey, okay, we've identified that there's a fucking problem here. If we open this, we're going to at least get 50% of the people shifting over.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
So then we've got 50% less people to try and nail, and then hopefully they're not going to be retracting medals from 12 years past. We can now do it, within the next couple of months.
Yeah. And I think that's such a valid point as well. I mean, we've all seen recently that there's been, I think it's mostly obviously across sports where. It's funny though, there's one recently from 2012 saying that the GB team might win a bronze medal, but imagine 8 years after the fact, you finish your swimming career, you can't stand on the podium and kind of get that moment in the sun, that moment in the spotlight where you've, all your hard work's paid off, you're there, your family's seeing it, the world's seeing it. No, instead 8 years from now, you get a little postage delivered to your door with a medal. It isn't the same, so I think, as you say, if you kind of sort of said, all right, what you can use PEDs, you can do what, do it all, and it's all above board, and it's totally allowed. you can, like, I think you would, as you say, minimize the amount of people actually are trying to kind of do it under the radar sort of thing. And also, I think if it was obviously allowed, it'd be a lot easier to make sure athletes were doing it sensibly and safely, because also you'd have doctors involved, and doctors would also kind of help them with their cycling and on and off, and levels to use and such. But as we discussed, is it at the risk of detracting from clean sport? Would it impact on, again, young people? If you sort of said at 15, right, you can take all these peds, would that long-term impact on other things? You wouldn't know.
Well, it's the same thing as, like, if I was I was playing young ball, like 13, 14, 15 ruggers, and someone had come up to me and be like, Alex, I want you to take this, this and this until you're 18, and I can guarantee you're going to play in the Premiership. I'd say, where can I sign?
Yeah.
I can guarantee you I wouldn't be thinking, oh, what about no, I get the chance to go play pro rugby. I'd have been like, yeah, sound, whatever, no problem.
That is, it's almost kind of like, especially with kind of younger people, as even now, like, if you sort of have a goal, if someone gives you an opportunity to achieve that goal, you don't think about, you're solely focused on that kind of that achievement, that goal. So if someone offers you a way to do it, you'll be like, yeah, as I say, where do I sign? You'd shake the hand off. But then, as I say, it's the benefit of hindsight. And obviously, once you achieve something, it's very much like, is the way I always looked at GCSEs and A levels. When I was doing GCSEs, I was stressed out of my nut doing GCSEs. Same with A levels, same with uni exams. But as soon as you've done them, you're like, it doesn't matter, like, they're done. So when you're achieving, like, when you're doing things, they're the be all end all. Once you've actually done them, you're like, oh, like, you move on to something else, sort of thing. So as you say, like, if someone said to you can play in the Premiership and obviously play for a Sale or someone like that, you'd be like, yeah, definitely. But once you've done it, you'd be like, what do I want to do next? And has that impact? And obviously, the benefit of hindsight, has that impacted on what I've done? Has that impacted on what I can do in the future? So it is a tricky topic, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and I think having these discussions is the way forward, man, and especially going back to, like, parasport and gender gap and everything is about having a discussion and putting your fucking ego aside, put it in a little box, put it in the drawer for like half an hour, grab yourself a coffee, and then just, like, have a little discussion about it. And I think that's why I love fucking bringing people up like this so much, man. Like, I learn stuff, never mind about anyone else.
Same here, man. But I think as well, also, I say that obviously one of the key things, but also one of the first thing is to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
I think so many people out of, whether they've, as a man, even though I totally agree that there shouldn't be a pay gap, I feel guilty, and almost kind of guilty not that there is a pay gap. But you've got to acknowledge it in order to address it, and then in order to then move forward and actually kind of tackle that problem.
Yeah.
But for some people, like, especially, discussing, pay gaps, it's some people won't even acknowledge its existence. Like, you see some videos where people will flat out deny, whether there's racism or homophobia or disability, or just flat out deny that it exists. And you think the first step in anything is to acknowledge that there's a problem, and acknowledge, once you know there's a problem, and then it's like, right, that's when the discussion starts. The problem, what we can do to solve it. What steps are we going to take? What are we going to do?
I'm not sure. Is acknowledgement like the first step, or is, like, the conversation the first step? Because sometimes you do need the acknowledgement to have the conversation, if you know what I mean. However, if you do get the right individual, you can still have the conversation even though they don't acknowledge that it's a problem. You know what I mean? So it could be like, if we just converse over something, then you could say a point that actually triggers me, and I'm like, oh, now I acknowledge the problem.
And okay, definitely. You're definitely right there. So, exactly, you say something, you almost stumble across it, don't you?
Yeah, you do, yeah.
All of a sudden, kind of the penny drops, and you're like, hang on a moment. No, you bang on there. I think it's almost kind of chicken or egg sort of scenario, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and I think there's levels and there's degrees, right? Because we can sit around and say, like, there's problem in Uganda. or this problem in, you know, a country where there has been mass genocide or mass famine or whatever. We could be like, yeah, we acknowledge that's an actual problem, but it doesn't fucking change the way we live our lives. Or we could get on a plane and go to that country and have conversations with people who's been through it, and then we'll be like, shit, this is a problem, and actually like truly acknowledge it because we've seen it. So there's like this, I don't know, there's ways, and I think being able to give people the opportunity and a pedestal and the microphone to talk, like yourself who's been through disability sport, like people who are actual athletes at the moment, like people who maybe have like discrimination against them for whatever, like just give people a voice to be able to have the good discussion is the way forward, man.
I think you bang on there as well. It's you know, it's easy for you and I as, you know, two kind of white males to chat about, you know, pay gap, you know, gender pay gaps or homophobia, or you can't talk about it without including people who've experienced that, and people who are, you know, currently experiencing it, people who have experienced it, people who may in the future experience it. You need to kind of involve as many people as possible. I think, you know, everyone should have a voice, but you need to involve people who, it's, you know, people who've actually, you know, been there, done that, got that, you know, kind of been there and got the experience. Because otherwise, it's just us kind of discussing what we think, which usually probably isn't the actual scenario, isn't that the actual case. So you need to get people, as you say, you know, people who've actually been there, you know, and experienced what you're discussing, so that way you can get an actual accurate depiction, an accurate picture of what's occurring.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%.
Because otherwise,
100%.
Yeah.
Like just having those conversations with people that, you know, have different life experiences and know a couple of different things, like just having the discussion, mate. Put your ego aside, have the discussion, you know, have those difficult conversations. Like, you know, it's the whole thing of like, you only live once. What do they say? Like, eat the food, get the tattoo, have the difficult conversation, do what you want to do, sort of thing. And it's just like, yeah, you only live once, so we can't, there's no do-overs. We can't just be like, oh, okay, yeah, I was a bit ignorant to a few things, let me just start over, you know what I mean? Save and quit. And I'll like reload the chapter. It's like, mate, you fuck up, you better learn from it and go forward.
Exactly. You say, like, you know, people will make mistakes. I think that's part of life, and I think people now, especially nowadays, expect everyone to be perfect and no one to make any mistakes. When people do make mistakes, especially people in public eye, they get, you know, immediately thrown into the wolves, sort of thing. But I think it's people who make mistakes and don't learn and don't make changes, they're the ones who should be chastised, ones who should be kind of drawn up. But the people who make mistakes, and if they make a mistake and they learn from it and they show that they've bettered themselves and they show that they've put in the work and they've changed, you know, and they've grown from it, they're the ones who almost should be kind of publicized for good reasons. Say, like, he's done something wrong, but he's paid his dues, he's made his amends, and now look at him now. He's or he or she, you know, look at them now. They're doing so much better because they've done something wrong. They've questioned themselves. They've, you know, found the root cause of the problem, and then they've addressed that. That's how everyone should be.
It's hard, man. And the easy thing to do is do something wrong and then be like, nah, fuck you, and just carry on. Like that's easy. It's hard to admit that you've done something wrong. It's hard to admit that, okay, I am flawed. Like I made the wrong decision, went down the wrong path, did whatever, and be like, oh, you actually like take active steps to rectify that, or to go forward and be like, I accept that, but now I'm going to be better from it. And like that's hard, man. And people need commending for it.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, as you say, you know, it's such a hard, because again, as you say, it's so easy to be like, no, that's the thing, they're wrong, or that's wrong, I'm right. It's so hard to say, I'm wrong, I've done the wrong thing, because it takes a lot of kind of almost onus, you know, to be like, no, it's me, it's nothing else. It's I'm the problem in the scenario, but what am I going to do to correct that? Yeah, definitely. It takes, you know, a big kind of character, a big kind of person to be like, I'm gonna I'm going to put myself in a situation where things can go wrong. So many people won't put themselves in scenarios where failure's a chance, where they have a chance at doing something wrong, because they don't want to be seen as, somebody who does something wrong or a failure, or someone who's afraid, someone who's fallen down. But it's those people who get back up, those people who, fail, but then will try again, and fail again probably, and then still try again.
Takes balls, man. Takes balls.
Yeah. People with that sort of character, that mentality, are the ones who, are probably the best among us, because they're willing to try and learn and try and learn and try and learn. And kind of repeat that cycle. Every time you get a little bit wiser, get a little bit stronger.
That's it. That's all that happens, man. That's life.
Yeah.
That's life. Mate, before my laptop dies, I'm just going to say I really, really appreciate your time.
Cheers. No, mate. Been great chatting to you, mate.
You seriously have so much knowledge, and obviously had an incredible swimming career, and like the epitome of resilience, hard work, and then also like the ability to question a lot of things, like, the conversation we've just had, and learn from it. I think, one of those people that are not afraid of, cool. So I can learn from that area. Wicked. So now I'm going to move forward and go from that. And I think yourself needs a massive pat on the back for that, mate. Like,
nah, mate. I mean, right back again. I think obviously we're so friends because we are kind of similar. And all those things that you said to me, which are obviously lovely things to say. I feel kind of they're all accurate depictions of yourself. You obviously hard worker, constantly learning, constantly want to be better than you were, better than the previous day. I think that they're all kind of characteristics and attributes that are going to serve you well in whatever you do. So you're constantly going to be kind of obviously taking steps forward, and also you're not afraid to take a leap of faith. Like moving over to New Zealand was a huge leap. Mm-hmm. You've done it. You take it your stride, and you're better for it. You're a bigger, more rounded person than when you left, and that's all you can ever hope to do going forward. So hats off to you. Massive.
I appreciate it, mate. There's a lot of mutual respect and mutual love between the two of us, man. Like, apple didn't fall far from the tree, and two peas in a frigging pod. And I've thought that for a long time, mate. So I really appreciate your time and coming on and shedding some knowledge, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.
I really appreciate it, man. Like, look after yourself, and mate, enjoy that new job, enjoy that new endeavor, mate. New beginnings.
Keep crushing it, man. Take care. All the best.
Man. Take it easy.